Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over a pretty entertaining email that was sent from a subscriber. This is from a guy, he is in his late 30s, he is a military officer, and he's actually one of these guys in the story I covered a few days ago, which is titled, "A Blue-Haired Ethnicist Offends While an Old School Army Officer Commends." And in that story, he was writing in to give guys advice about joining the military. But in this story, he's sharing his story, his past, what led him to become R-pill aware, or whatever you want to call it. And just like all the other guys have gotten to that point in life, they have effed up royally when they're younger with that one girl that taught them what not to do. And you're going to see in this story, guys, how as a young guy at 16, he made all the mistakes that so many guys make, and then some. And had this gal who was more than happy to take full advantage of him. However, you'll see in this story that eventually he wisens up after a whole lot of BS, kicks her to the curb, which of course she doesn't like too much, and is now kicking butt and taking names in life. Meanwhile, fast forward to the future, and she's a pig. Last time we saw a picture of her a decade ago, she was like 40, 50 pounds overweight, and it's probably even double that now. And so it goes to show, guys, that you can make a lot of mistakes, make you just want to cringe when you hear your past. But you know what? You learn from your mistakes, you move on, and typically the people that did you wrong, they're not doing too well down the road. It's always a good one to hear. So just sit back, you'll definitely enjoy this one. He says, "Hello, SSM. I hope your move to Florida went smoothly and you are enjoying your new accommodations." You're darn right, bro. It's November 7th and it's in the low 80s. It's beautiful here. I just listened to your video titled, "A Blue-Haired Ethnicist Offends While an Old School Military Officer Commends." Much to my surprise, I was the old school officer. It was quite surreal hearing my advice being read on your channel, and I hope I was able to help some of your viewers who may be considering military service. In the video, you mentioned that you would like to hear my story about the relationship that I had and it led to me enlisting. It's been almost 20 years since all this went down, and I'm a far cry from the dummy I used to be. Get your smacking hand ready, because there were many lessons that I learned the hard way. The smacking hands are ready this morning, man. You're the first of the day. My parents' divorce was the beginning of my long journey to RP wisdom. My dad was a federal agent who made frequent trips to the Philippines for work. On one such trip, he started having an affair with a local. My mom found out, and my dad ended up leaving her in favor of starting a life with his new girlfriend. What a fucking asshole. In the ensuing divorce, he made it very clear he wanted nothing to do with his 4 kids, and hand-wrote in the divorce papers that he wanted zero custody of us. Not just an asshole, a piece of shit. Oh my God, you know what that would do to kids? That their dad just abandoned them, want nothing to do with him for his Filipino piece of ass that he got? I hope things didn't work out for him. This happened when I was 13 years old, and I was just starting to get interested in girls and dating. My mom had always been more liberal, but after her divorce, she went full-blown feminist. Oh, God. With him out of the picture, the only dating advice my mom gave me was, if you just respect women, everything will work out. And that is the worst possible advice you can possibly take. But guys, when you're young and have no male role model around anymore, you're going to take the advice you can get. And a lot of guys think, well, women obviously understand women, so that'd be a great source of wisdom and advice. And guess what, guys? I made the same mistake many times. And whenever I took advice from women about women, from women, it always led to disaster. Every time. Occasionally, let me say this, occasionally they'll give little pieces of information that actually are useful, but by and large, take your advice from experienced men. This was the absolute worst piece of advice I could have gotten in my entire life. See? I think she generally believed that she was giving me good advice, but many of the issues I would have later on can be linked to me taking this one statement seriously. As you often says, you don't ask a fish how to fish. You ask a fisherman. I didn't have access to that kind of wisdom. I didn't have any strong male influence around me, and I had no reason to believe that my mom was out to get me. So I took her advice. You know, it's a possibility that she really wasn't out to get you. I mean, but just that she was just thinking that's just the way, because women say things, it's what they think and what they feel. At the end of the day, what they feel always takes over, but they think, and also given what your dad did to her, but no, you got to take the advice from men. I was trying to be the gentleman my mom wanted me to be so that I could be successful with women. And he says, smack, smack, smack. The advice I needed and the advice I will give to your audience is women are narcissistic, selfish, manipulative, and will take advantage of you. Well, certainly most of them, and they're all capable of it if wanted to. I don't think my mom was trying to set me up for failure, but she either wasn't willing or wasn't able to take an objective look at female behavior. So that's what I think. I never stopped to think about her situation. She was a recently divorced, overweight, middle-aged single mom who had just moved her family and was fighting to survive. And that was the kind of woman I was interested in. Maybe being a respectable gentleman would work perfectly. I was more interested in someone my own age, so instead of being a gentleman, I was really a beta simp. And that's typically what happens. Now I have to question this. When your dad up and left and abandoned her, was she overweight? Did she stop taking care of herself a long time ago? Was he getting, well, obviously you're not going to know this, but was he getting any sex? How did she treat him, all that? Because if during their whole marriage, she was overweight and he had zero physical attraction to her because she didn't take care of herself and she was impossible to deal with and all that, and a feminist, well, he said she became a big one after, you can kind of understand why he eventually kicked her to the curb. Now, my biggest problem is A, he cheated, he just ended with her, and B, abandoned all you. That makes him a piece of shit. But if your mom didn't take care of herself and didn't take care of him and was very difficult to be around, you know, I can see why. You got to see it from my perspective here, because I tell guys to leave bad marriages like that, you know? So there's some unanswered questions in that department. But anyhow, back to you being raised to be a beta simp. This was in 2002. Well before the words beta and simp had been used at all, let alone in regular conversation. I didn't know why my relationships didn't last longer than a few months, because I was being respectful like my mom had instructed. I would go on dates, pay for dinner, pay for flowers, write flattering letters and love notes, and then get dumped after a few months. Yeah, that's how it goes. And the guys that didn't do any of that had the girls chasing after them. Because to women, you do all that bullshit and they see you're trying too hard, okay? Especially when in their minds, you haven't done anything to deserve that. And since a lot of gals out there, let me rephrase that. I have never met one single girl in my life that wasn't deeply insecure about something. And often, the prettier the girls are, the more insecure they are. And a lot of the very pretty gals, even in high school, definitely in high school, they often are with guys that treat them like crap, so they think they're not worth anything. So when guys actually treat them like human beings, they're repelled by that. You see what I mean? I need to add context to the situation I was growing up in. We had to save money in any way we could, and stretching resources to their limit was a common practice. I would wear shoes until the soles blew out. My pants were often a few inches too short because I had grown out of them and didn't have money to replace them. I got a needle and thread and made it work. Old and faded clothes were the norm, and I had learned to become self-sufficient because I knew no one was coming to help. Okay, so if you're wearing these old shoes with holes in them, and they're probably dirty and smelly, and your pants don't fit right, that makes it even harder for you, because during the teenage years, it's all about your appearance, and, I mean, it's always about your appearance, but really, back then, it's even bigger deal compared to real life. I was excited when I turned 16 because I was now able to get a job and start making my own money. The day after my 16th birthday, I started filling out applications. I got a job in retail, and I was a diligent and committed employee because of how appreciative I was for the opportunity to make money. It was at this job where I met one of my coworkers, Ashley, not a real name of course, the girl who became my big bad relationship. We all have the Ashley. I had my girl at 16 years old the same year. And I'm not going to say her name, but I can remember her as if it was yesterday. She was an Italian girl. I've always had a thing for Italian girls. Brown eyes, ginormous, D-sized knockers. She was a cheerleader. And, yeah, taught me a whole lot. A quick aside, I mentioned earlier that the words simp and beta were invented at the time. Just like how 5 years ago, the words Karen and Chad did not exist like they do today. I bring this up to highlight that. With help from you and channels like yours, you are in the middle of developing a better way to discuss the entire dating scene as it exists in the modern day. We now have a new vocabulary that has been developed in order to help men warn and educate each other. I have to add my story to several friends and groups over the years. And every single person I've told to has a big bad. I define that as a relationship that you put an embarrassing amount of time, effort, and resources into for reasons you can't rationally identify. I don't fault people for having a big bed, but it's what you do that is important. What you do after that is important. Yeah, like I said, mine was 16 years old just like you, with the big-titted Italian girl who's a cheerleader, and I learned the hard way, and I did all the stupid shit that you shouldn't do, but I didn't know, just like a lot of you guys. So, gentlemen, you make mistakes, don't beat yourself too much about this, especially when you're young and don't know any better. It's when you keep making the same mistakes over and over again over the decades, then you deserve some serious smacks. Back to the main story. Ashley was taller, kind of my thing, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, social, a solid 8 in the looks department, and flirty with me. She was 1 year younger than me, and I thought she was out of my league. Smack! Never think that, guys, even though you all think it. My awful dating strategy wasn't working very well, and I was easy prey for anyone who would give me the time of day. What started as a workplace flirtation escalated to lunch dates and us looking for more reasons to spend time around each other. Smack! Don't date a coworker and don't do lunch dates. Meet at night, although you are 16, so obviously it's a different ballgame. When you're a fucking adult and you're 20, certainly 18 or older, or definitely 21, meet at night. I've talked to so many girls, when they hear lunch, they're thinking lunch. That's what friends do. I found out on one of these dates that she had a boyfriend, but they were going to break up. Red flag. When I dropped her off from this date, we kissed for the first time. Smack! Now you're kissing a girl that has a boyfriend, and she's going to break up with him. Dude, not going to work. Coworker, she has a boyfriend. Mention that after you roped you in. Obviously, this was a big red flag, but the gentleman in me accepted her excuses that he is controlling, and I don't think he's the one. We started dating the weekend after she broke up with the guy. Oh, where's this going to go? Another red flag that I ignored was the fact that she is an only child. While not a red flag, necessarily, it became one when I saw on more than one occasion that she played her parents, who were divorced, against each other for attention and resources. I've known only children that were spoiled assholes, and I've known some that weren't. My nephew, he's an only child, and he's a great kid. I'm not saying that because I'm biased, because believe me, if my nephew was a little asshole, I would say, believe me. But a lot are spoiled. Our relationship was similar to what I had been used to at this point, which consisted of me paying for everything and her getting away with anything, including being passive-aggressive towards me. Smack! This is what happens when, again, you're being the perfect gentleman, no male role model, and think that's what you got to do. I usually noticed when she was being condescending, but I wanted to be respectful like my mother instructed, and I would let her little comments about an action slide. We exchanged I love yous at around the 2-month point. Now let me guess, you probably said the I love you first. A defining moment in our relationship came at the 4-month point. I clearly remember that we were standing facing each other in the quad at our school. She'd been resting her head on my chest when she looked up, gave me a pouty lip and sad eyes, and asked, "Do you still love me?" I was floored. I had no idea where this was coming from. There was nothing I could think of that would cause her to ask me something like that. I said, "Of course. Why would you ask me that?" She couldn't say anything specific, but just that she felt like I didn't love her anymore. Oh, now you got to prove it. Now you got to fulfill some requests she has to prove it. I now know that she was manipulating me to dote on her more to prove my love. There you go. I then started spending as much of my free time as I could with her to show her that she was the center of my attention. So instead of spending time with your bros or working at the job or doing things you enjoy, you've made her the center of your universe, giving her all your attention. And what happens when guys do that? The thing is, guys, that a lot of gals can initially really like a guy in the beginning, and they'll want your attention and be with you and see as much as possible, and that's great for you. It's a great feeling, especially if she's hot and you're getting laid. The problem is when you start doing that and giving up all the things that make you you, eventually gets to the point that she gets turned off because you stop being the guy she was attracted to in the first place. And you're like, what the fuck? This is what you said you wanted. Well, I'm not sure how I feel, or some crap like that. So don't do that. And notice, watch her chase. You want her to fight for your time. That way things are on your timetable and you got the leverage. When she's not fighting for your time, then you got a problem. Anyway, This included coming into my work on my days off just to stand around here so we could talk, as well as going to her house almost every night I had off to spend time. I now think this was because she wanted to keep tabs on me and isolate me from my friends and family, but she disguised it and just wanted to spend time with each other. I was blowing up friends because she wanted to hang out and I wanted to respect her wishes. Smack! Never ditch your bros. So many guys do this. I'm sure a lot of you guys have known guys have done this, or you yourselves have done this at least once. Cut everybody off to spend the time with the chick. Then she kicks you to the curb eventually, again saying you changed. You're not the same guy anymore. And then your bros don't want to hang out with you. As for intimacy, I was, as sure you guessed, getting the absolute bare minimum. Dude, you're spending all this time with her and you're barely getting any? It'd be one thing if you're up to your eyeballs in poontang, but no. I was a virgin going into the relationship and she was born again. She's born again at 15 years old. What the hell was she doing before she was born again? I only got one BJ in the entire year we were dating, where I didn't even finish, and only saw her topless a handful of times. By contrast, I was expected to do whatever she asked for, including frequently going south of the border. I didn't want to be disrespectful by saying no, and I was so excited that someone was willing to be with me in that way that I didn't know how one-sided it was, at least not at first. Dude, unless south of the border, unless she had the most amazing south of the border and it smelled like Starburst or some kind of delicious candy, what the hell? You get one BJ the entire time and you get occasional boob shot, but meanwhile you're going south of the border quite regular. Oh yeah, smack, smack, smack. God's sakes. You're a kiss ass. You're a pleaser. And what happens to kiss asses and pleasers? I guarantee the guys that didn't do any of this stuff, she was more than willing to be down on the knees and taking care of the south of their borders. In the final months of the relationship, I was finally beginning to piece together how one-sided everything was. Gee, really? I had a car payment and had to buy all my own things. But I was also paying for all her stuff. Smack! Her parents paid for her car, clothes, and accessories, but she was always broke and never helped with paying for anything, even though she knew the kind of awful situation I was living in. Because she didn't give a shit, that's why. Oh, and by the way, I'm sure she wasn't getting it from you. While you're down south of the border, I'm sure she's taking care of somebody else. I forgot to mention that. I began bringing up how I wanted her to contribute to more resources to our time together. She always shot this idea down using one or more excuses or another. I think she knew we were drifting apart because we finally had SCX at the 1-year mark. Well, at least you nailed her once. But 1 year of all this, you know, all the money you spent with her, you could have easily just hired an escort many times over. It wasn't good. In fact, the entire event was over in the course of 2 different sessions, lasting a total of 5 minutes. And I didn't finish either time. What? You would think if it was your first time, you would have finished, pretty damn quickly. She couldn't stop being a control freak even when being intimate. During the first try, she started crying hysterically about 2 minutes in and gave me some sort of excuse about how she was so sorry, but she was just thinking about whether her dad would approve or not. She initiated our second attempt a few days later when I had the house to myself, but she stopped me every 20-30 seconds because she thought she heard something. I literally lost wood due to stress and lack of motion. See, guys, I've been smacking him and giving him shit here, but he knows it's not mean-spirited. We share these stories. We share these humiliating, embarrassing, ridiculous stories of the shit we did, because I know guys are laughing at this because they're like, oh, God, SSM did the same thing. We share this so we can feel like we're not all complete losers because we all make mistakes. And hopefully young guys hear this, don't do the same thing. But God almighty, bro, I did dumbass things too. The final straw came when we had our 1-year anniversary date. I paid for a hibachi dinner, a movie date complete with candy and popcorn, and a nice necklace I got from Zales. Oh my God. Hibachi dates ain't cheap, man. Hibachi's awesome, but they're not cheap. And a necklace from Zales because you got half sex. It didn't even finish. Then she gave me my present. She got a happy anniversary card and re-gifted me one of her old personal CDs. You got a used CD. Nice. That she had since middle school, complete with faded doodles and peeling stickers that have been on the last 3 years. I think the expression on my face let her know she messed up because she started bombarding me with the excuses about how money was tight and she'd make it up to me later. Money's tight, you're buying everything, and her parents give her money all the time. It's not like she has a mortgage to pay. That usually meant that she'd let me go down on her. That's your reward? Unless you love doing that. That's not a reward. I couldn't deny it anymore. She wasn't in the relationship like I was. Really, you think? At this point, I had completed my first semester of college where I was pre-med and overloaded. All the time I spent at her house had taken a toll on the amount of homework I could do, and my GPA was a 1.5, which caused me to lose my scholarship. Dude, okay. Smack, smack, smack. Now you are letting her, or you yourself are fucking up your purpose and your grind by getting a 1.4 GPA, and you want to go to medical school one day and screwing your scholarship. How much shit do you have to go through for this broad? Oh my God. Anytime we were together, she would look through my phone calls and messages to see if there was anything suspicious and accuse me of cheating if something didn't meet her screening requirements. Knowing what I know now, I should have been suspicious of the guy she was talking about when she got back from choir camp. Choir camp? Oh, she's using that mouth of hers for something other than singing, my friend. I finally ended with her when all we did was fight and we were together. It's about goddamn time. Hallelujah. I tried going to a poker night at a friend's house, and she picked a fight with me over text messages just so I had to give her my attention. Why don't you turn your phone off? Why don't you block her? She had never been the one who was dumped and was beside herself when I did it, including giving me her best waterworks display with the "I thought you loved me" thrown in here and there. The truth is, I was just done, and I realized I hadn't been in love with her for a very long time, or if it was in the first place. So a lot of guys have that, where they are just pushed too far, and they're just done. Even the nicest of guys sometimes are done. And they're like, and it's like everything comes clear, like a spell. A pussy spell was cast on them, and they're all of a sudden like, whoosh. And you're like, what the fuck was I thinking? I'm not in love with her. It's just that you're used to her. And she was your first girlfriend or relationship or first action, so it's a spell. I've been under the spell, I get it. The pussy spell. The truth is, I was done. I realized blah, blah, blah. After things ended, she called me and said that she was willing to work on the relationship. She says, if you love someone, you make it work. Yeah, that's great and all, but the other someone here, you, don't show me anything close to reciprocating what I've been putting in this relationship. F you. She has said this exact line many times during our relationship, usually after an argument that we had. The result of this line was always me compromising on something that I wanted to do, and she would get exactly what she wanted. After all, I was supposed to be respectful of her words. Thanks, Mom, for all the great advice you gave me. This time, however, I just couldn't do it. I think I was finally beginning to understand that maybe I wasn't the problem after all. Well, you were the problem, and she's an asshole, and selfish and manipulative, and all those things. But I'm not letting you off this, my friend. You were a problem too because you enabled her behavior. But you also followed your mom's awful advice. We agreed to stay friends. Smack. What? We agreed to stay friends and tried to stay civil towards each other at work. Good luck with that. But surprise, surprise, she was passive-aggressive hag toward me at every chance she got. Whenever I called her out on it, she would always say that she had a headache or it was miscommunication or some other garbage excuse. Of course it's a garbage excuse. I ended up dropping out of college because of losing my scholarship. In order to get away from her and pay off student loans, I got a job working at the prison in my town, which paid better than my retail job. I stayed on my grind and took overtime whenever I could. All my debts were paid. I was looking for what I should do next. As my last submission said, I ended up enlisting, and while in the Navy, I dedicated all my attention to learning my job and improving my fitness. Good for you. We're finally making the comeback here. I can't believe you pissed away after growing up poor and all that, and you screwed that whole thing over pussy, or lack of that. But you know what, man? That's all right. We all have to screw up and learn hard lessons. But it led to the path that you went on, and you're doing great in life now. While in the Navy, I dedicated my attention to learning my job and improving my fitness. My best friend during my training was a former personal trainer from San Diego, and he showed me how to structure my diet and build a workout plan. He also showed me how to womanize. He was a ladies' man. He likes the likes of which I've never seen before. This was my first experience of being mentored, and I was hooked. He was proficient in a skill that I wanted to develop, and he was willing to teach me what I knew. Let me guess, he just did the exact opposite of everything that you did with your first girlfriend. I paid attention, took his advice, and let's just say things turned out very well for me. Without getting into details, I had quite a bit of fun partying in ports all over East Asia, Africa, and the Pacific before transferring to the Army to become a pilot. I bet you did. Now, in fairness here, those gals in Asia and other parts of the world most certainly want to get themselves a white man, so probably you'd have to work that hard at it. But regardless, yes, you changed your ways. And I want to mention this here. I'm sure you didn't change your program ways overnight. I'm sure it took some time. As for Ashley, ooh, the good part. Let's hear about Ashley. She ended up dating that Chad from choir camp for a few weeks and was so in love until he cheated on her. He says Chads are going to be Chad. And she ended up starting up a relationship with another one of our coworkers. After a month, she was so in love again, I didn't want to spend another second of my time on her and didn't keep tabs on her until almost 10 years later when she was tagged in a Facebook post to one of my high school friends. She had put on at least 40 pounds and ended up working as a secretary at some child care center near where I lived when we were dating. There you go. So, early 30s, I guess, early to mid 30s. She's a porker. She never left the small town where I went to in high school. She tried adding me on LinkedIn about a month later, and I promptly deleted her request. Good riddance to the girl who peaked in high school. Guys, I never forget going to my 10-year high school reunion. And I walk in there, and it was just like my mouth almost dropped to the floor. So many pretty girls. So many pretty girls in high school. Just, it was like, what the hell? It's like they're wearing those sumo outfits you wear, in those movies make people look fat. And not just girls, too. A lot of guys that were jocks and everything put on weight. It's like, what the fuck? And interestingly, some gals that I knew in high school that weren't the best looking or maybe were overweight, they turned themselves around. They lost weight, got things together, developed, and they look great. As did some skinny ass guys and stuff like that. It's amazing. It's great to see. I told my story not because I'm proud of it, but because of how embarrassed I am by it. I don't dwell on what happened, but I spent a lot of time trying to figure out why it happened. It is understanding the why that growth and wisdom can occur. I completely agree, brother. It always occurred to me that I would have benefited from a strong male influence during this time, and I look back at my past self with shame ensuing I won't make the same mistakes. Trading stories with my friends told me I'm not the only guy with a big bad in the past, but she is just that, in the past. I hope my story about dating a girl with more red flags than a Chinese parade helps some of my brothers get past their own big bad and get into their purpose. Right, that's why I do this, guys. And by the way, there is no shortage of stories like this because there's no shortage of guys screwing up or girls being a-holes. I could be doing this to my dying day as long as YouTube doesn't shut me down. So I'm starting the website so I can at least post this stuff with nobody fucking with me. SSM, I'd like to thank you again for all that you do. Your work provides a very meaningful contribution for all of us who are trying to find the words to explain what we've seen, explain what we've been through, and prepares us to help our brothers to our left and right. To the SSM community, keep on your grind, fellas. Remember, women are narcissistic, selfish, manipulative, and will take advantage of you. By and large, we need to be isolated and stupid in order to be controlled, and sharing our stories makes us united and informed. Let us know if you have any questions. Let me know if you have any questions, and let's help each other get stronger. Amen, bro. So, dude, that was a great story, and I know you don't feel embarrassed by this at this point because it's in the past, but this is how you learn, guys. You make mistakes. The problem is a lot of people, they make mistakes, they never try again. You don't get anywhere in life without effing up and then keep trying and trying and trying. When we're babies, all we can do is roll around and crawl, but we try to stand up, and we fall on our faces how many times, right? And learning to walk and all that stuff. But you keep trying and trying and trying and trying. You're going to fall on your face. You're going to screw up. But you will get better. As with many other things you try. And you guys that did martial arts know darn well it takes years to master a skill. How many jabs and roundhouse kicks and hook shots and everything you got to do to practice and get it right. But anyhow, great story, man. I'm glad you shared your story, and this will definitely help some guys out. And it's nice to hear these girls that were a-holes when they're younger turn into fat pigs later in life. That's always funny to hear. All right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let this guy know what you think. Give this guy some praise. He deserves some praise for sharing his story here. And guys, if you got a good story you want to share, definitely email me, strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. Just give me some time and I'll hopefully can get to it when I can. And this also includes, guys, any crazy stories you hear, which I can share on the other channels, or a simple question for the Ask SSM segment. Everything is, I can make use of everything. Just send it my way. And be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.